Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Seth Joyner Show. So much going on. Got a great guest for you guys a little later on. But man, let's talk about this Philadelphia Eagles loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Thursday night. Another dismal showing for the Philadelphia Eagles against the Super Bowl champions, Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady. The score was not indicative of what the game really looked like. The Philadelphia Eagles struggled through yet another game. We all were waiting for this team to make the turn, waiting for the defense and the offense to show up both on the same day. And let's just be honest, quite frankly, I had an inclination that the Eagles might finally, find their footing and play well. But I was wrong. This game wasn't even close. It kind of looked like Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were just, playing chess, and the Philadelphia Eagles were playing checkers. They were outmatched in every way imaginable. Let's start with Jalen Hurts. There's a lot of chatter going on around Jalen Hurts and, his inability to make the easy throws, to play the game, the way it needs to be played, to develop, and for us to get a legitimate understanding of whether this guy can be the guy going forward, or do the Philadelphia Eagles need to delve into the draft or delve into the free agent market come this offseason and find out whether, their quarterback is there or not. The first thing I will say, and I cannot and will not defend Jalen Hurts. There are throws that Jalen is not making. There are reads that Jalen is not making that if he's going to be the long-term solution for this football team, he's got to make. They're easy throws. There are layups, so to speak, when guys are wide open. The little check down throws that, he's just, quite frankly, a starting quarterback in the NFL. They have to make those at a higher percentage. He's just not doing it right now. And the question has to be asked also, is Nick Siriani and his coaching staff, are they asking too much of a guy, who he doesn't even have 10 complete NFL games under his belt. And yet you're asking him to throw the ball at a rate that's just unbelievable. Now I get it. There is this thought process out there that, the new age football thought, the analytical thought is that you throw the ball early to get a lead, and then you run the ball late in 4-minute offense in order to run the clock out. But you cannot. You should not. And in my opinion, it's paramount for Jalen Hurts' development. You cannot throw the ball at a 3-1 clip. And that's where the Philadelphia Eagles are right now. Nick Sirianni in this offense, I don't see a way out, because we're now 6 games into a 17-game schedule, and we have yet to see the type of improvement, that you want to see. Now, you want to see incremental improvement by Jalen Hurts, but I'm also curious to see the incremental improvement by this coaching staff, and I'm not seeing it. The same plays that we ran week 1, so the same plays that we see being run in week 6, okay? And there just isn't a whole lot of there's not a whole lot of variety to what they do. They live in shotgun virtually, 95% of the time. Where's the diversity in this offense? Jalen Hurts needs to be under center. You need to run some 2 tight end sets, some 3 wide receiver sets where you have him under center and he's handing the ball off to Miles Sanders. That sets up any kind of play action pass, any kind of bootleg, any kind of misdirection to essentially keep the defense honest. But I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing the improvement, and I'm not seeing the incremental development that you need to see from this football team, which in my opinion just equals a long, long season, for Philadelphia Eagles fans, this football team, and this organization. In the first half alone, Jalen Hurts threw the ball 14 times. Statistically, he threw it 14 times, but yet they've got him down for another 6 runs. I can't tell you with certainty how many of those 6 runs were basically called runs, but I wouldn't think they're a high percentage because Nick Siriani continues to talk about the RPO and the read option that they actually run. Now, the problem with the RPO is teams are figuring out really good defensive coordinators, and Todd Bowles is a great defensive coordinator. Great defensive coordinators are figuring out, okay, this is how you stop this. The read is either the middle linebacker, the defensive end, or if you really want to throw the ball, you're reading the outside linebacker to the read side. Okay, the inside linebacker rather to the read side. If you slow play it, now it creates massive indecision on Jalen Hurts' part. And like I said last week, the RPO has turned into the greatest excuse for Nick Sirianni for why they don't run the ball. Miles Sanders touched the ball in the running game 1 time in 30 minutes on Thursday Night Football. Now that's unconscionable to me because you're asking your quarterback to put the ball in the air basically 20 times, and you're only going to run it 1 time. Okay, what's the message that you're sending to the defense? We're not going to run it. We know we're not going to run it. You know you're not going to run it. Okay, so then that brings in to the picture the opportunity for the defense to pin its ears back and come. It also brings into the picture the opportunity for Todd Bowles to scheme and come after Jalen Hurts to keep them in real tough situations. If you look at them and what they do on first down, it's unconscionable because basically they're minus yards on first down most of the time. Most of the time, that's exactly where it is. And how can you take a young quarterback, have him behind, the chains, and expect for him to convert on third down in times where he really needs to? It's problematic. It really is problematic. On third down in the first half, they basically were 2 for 6 for 33%. That means that, they're not converting third downs, which means that, they're 3 and out all over the place. Now, listen, they had 5 3 and outs after the 7-play touchdown drive, the pass to Zach Ertz. 5 3 and outs. Okay. 4 of them were straight up 3 and outs. And then they had 1 interception by Hurts on a terrible pass. For the night, Miles Sanders had a grand total of 9 runs for 56 yards. So in the second half, you fed him the ball 8 times, for basically 55, 54 yards. Okay, you do the math. That's a pretty good percentage. That's around 6 yards per carry. So where were those runs in the first half? Now, the other excuse that comes into play is that, we're in RPO and Jalen read, to actually pull the ball and throw the ball. Well, where's your base defense? Where's the situation where you line up on the center or you line up in shotgun, you snap the ball and you just hand the ball to Miles Sanders and you take all the ambiguity out of and all the decision making out of the picture, and you let your line know that we are going to run the ball in these situations. There is no read here. Just hand it off. The minute that the offensive linemen are engaging the defensive line, Miles Sanders is hitting the hole right now. Now he has an opportunity to be productive in the running game, opposed to the read stuff where he takes the ball, he's riding him into the line, and then the defensive linemen are just holding their gaps, waiting for Jalen Hurts to let the ball go. You can't run that type of offense on a consistent basis in the NFL. It just does not work. It doesn't work, okay? So I guess what I'm really getting at is that we're not going to get a true indication on what Jalen Hurts is, can be until Nick Sirianni decides to help him, by running the ball and diversifying their offense and creating a situation where Jalen can actually be successful without having to throw the ball every single down. At the end of the day, that's basically what it boils down to. He is just, and you listen to Nick in his press conference, and for him to say, okay, we got 10 days off. Okay, the question was asked, do you plan on self-scouting? Do you plan on, looking at what you've done and making some changes? And his response was, business as usual. We're going to keep doing what we've been doing and hope for better execution. Well, the true definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, hoping and thinking that, you know what, hey, sooner or later it'll work out. No, you don't keep banging your head against the wall. Where's the diversity in this offense that Nick Siriani talked about when he was asked early on, is the running game going to play a factor in how you call plays and what you do? And he said, absolutely. The running game is going to, well, guess what? It hasn't been. The Philadelphia Eagles are basically averaging about 9 to 10 running back rushes per game. The rest of the runs, are Jalen Hurts pulling the ball and running it off for RPO and read option. And I'm telling you now, we're not going to succeed, running that type of offense against great defensive coordinators. Now, you may have some defensive coordinators that aren't that good, but when you're playing against a guy like Todd Bowles, when you're playing against guys like Steve Spagnuolo, these guys are, for lack of a better word, kind of iconic in the world of defensive football. They can make adjustments on the fly. Their repertoire of actual defenses that they can run and how they can scheme you, are multiple. But we're not multiple on the offensive side. We line up. We are where we are. We run the plays that we run, and we're getting stopped and we're getting stymied. And everyone wants to point the finger at Jalen Hurts. And again, I will say, hey, you have to be able to, line up under center and do some different things. But at the same time, where's the diversity? There's no diversity in this offense, and when you make it easy, for defenses in this league, they're going to dominate you. Now, I got to jump over to the defensive side of the ball. I don't know where my guess is as of yet. If for some reason he does not, materialize here in the interim, we'll just jump over to a Talk to Him Tuesday. I'll take you guys' questions and we'll roll it from there. But before then, let's talk about the defense. The defense gave up to Tampa Bay 500 total yards of offense. You want to talk about balance? Tampa Bay ran the ball 31 times. They passed the ball 42 times. Now, let's talk about that theory that you run the ball, you throw the ball early and you run it late. They were balanced all game long, all game. And what does that balance create? That balance creates an opportunity for Tom Brady to be much more effective throwing for 399 yards in the pass game. Okay? Why is that so novel to this coaching staff? But it's something, that every other coaching staff, every successful offense, I want to say, abides by this. But the Philadelphia Eagles, they don't play offense that way. Defensively, we were 7 for 13 on third down conversions. That's 53%. If a defense can hold an offense at 33%, that's the goal. That's the gold standard of defensive football, holding a team to 33%. But 53%, that means that half of their possessions, half of their third down situations, they converted them. You cannot play defensive football that way. Time of possession, they dominated 40 minutes. In a 60-minute game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers held on to the football for 40 minutes out of a 60-minute game. Okay? What is going on with us from a defensive perspective? We were so much softer on the back end. The corners played off. And you're playing against a guy like Tom Brady. if you're stationary as a defense and you allow him to see a pre-snap read, which let's just be honest, you really can't fool a guy like Tom Brady. A couple of years ago, people asked, well, when are you going to retire? Why are you still playing? You got all these Super Bowls. He was like, why would I quit now? I have all the answers. That means that every single time that you line up as a defense, he can look at you and know exactly what you're in and exactly how he wants to attack you. From a defensive perspective, we run two fronts, okay, a 30 front and a 40 front. Sometimes we're in the under or over in the 40 front, okay? And we basically run three coverages. And the corners line up where they're going to line up, and the safeties line up where they're going to line up, and there's no disguise to what they do. That is just unconscionable against a guy like Tom Brady. Why aren't the corners getting up and back? Why aren't the safeties rotating? Why aren't they doing? Why is this defense not multiple? In a sense that you show the offense one thing and then you roll into something else. At least try to. Even if you can't fool a guy like Tom Brady, at least try to. But if you're just going to be stationary like a bunch of statues out there and you're going to play extremely passive, Tom Brady will take the 5 yards. He'll take the 6 yards. If they're ripping off like they were 5-6 yards per running play, and then you turn around and you give him 5-6 yards because the corner is going to play 8 yards off, and Tom Brady's just going to raise up and throw it out there, or they're going to run a speed out, then guess what? You have no shot at winning this football game. That's exactly what transpired the other night. Where's the creativity? Where's the adjustments? Where's the blitz scheme? Where are the disguises? I don't see any of that as we begin to talk about this Philadelphia Eagles defense. And the problem is this persists from week to week. It's not just a one-time thing. You saw the same thing against Carolina last week. You saw the same thing in the previous 4 games. And the Philadelphia Eagles, if John Gannon believes that this is how he can play defensive football versus all of these, high-powered offenses in the NFL, he is mistakenly wrong. We Philadelphia fans, you're in for a long football season. If this coaching staff does not figure out how to make some changes, let's talk about some players. I had a little dialogue with someone on Facebook today about, Alex Singleton. And the fact that one guy made the comment that, hey, he's third in the NFL in tackles. My response was, yeah, but he's making tackles 5, 6, 7, 8 yards down the field. What good does that do? I think Davion Taylor is a guy that's getting more and more playing time. Seems like, he might be a guy that can step in, but the Eagles are deficient at the linebacker position. He's a young guy, basically in his second year, didn't play much at all last year, and he's trying to figure out how to be a pro. Defensive line wise, I thought that the Philadelphia Eagles pass rush would, create more pressure. But as I told you guys, many, many times before, the pass rush and the coverage go hand in hand. The reason why the Eagles were so much more successful last week, as far as the passing game was concerned, is because they were much more aggressive on the outside with the cornerbacks and the safety and the slot corner. If you're going to play off, there's no way that the pressure can get there because Tom Brady's just going to take what you give him, whether it's a quick slant, whether it's a quick out, whether it's a raise up and throw it out there because the guy is 7, 8 yards off the ball, whether it's a 10-yard comeback and the defensive back has got 6, 7 yards worth of cushion. There's no way that the defensive front can get there. They can't get there because defensively, our cornerbacks have to challenge wide receivers, and we cannot play scared. We cannot be afraid that, hey, let's play off, and play bend but don't break. That kind of mentality will get you beat all the time. Whether you're in zone or whether you're in man, our cornerbacks are good enough to get up and challenge anybody at the wide receiver. They can run with any wide receiver, I would assume, in the NFL. And if you don't put them in a position, if the mindset, of the defensive coordinator, one Jonathan Gannon, is to be passive, okay, let's not let them get anything over the top. If that's your mindset and that's the message that you're sending to your players, then they are going to play passive on the field. And when I watch this defense, this is what I see. I see a passive defense followed by players that play in a passive nature. If you want your players to be more aggressive, then you have to call a much more aggressive game. Okay. You got to figure out, what does it take? Do I send a linebacker every now and then because the front four is just not getting home? Okay. If your mindset is that, hey, the rush isn't getting home because he's getting the ball out of his hands so fast, then get your corners up, get your slot corner up, get your linebackers up in obvious passing situations when they got man-to-man coverage and take it away. Let's break up. The rhythm and the timing of the passing route. If a guy's supposed to be at 10 yards and he's not there when he's supposed to be there, guess what the quarterback's got to do? He's got to pull that ball down and he's got to go to his second or his third read. But when a quarterback can go to his first read every single time with no pressure, Chris Collinsworth talked about it, on the broadcast. It's like 7-on-7. And Tom Brady throwing the ball the other night looked like 7-on-7. It was just 42 for 34. 42 for 34 is what is he threw the ball 42 times and completed 34 passes. Okay. He only missed 8 passes all night. And I get it. It's Tom Brady. Okay. But if I always say, it's either death by 1,000 cuts or it's one stab in the heart. Which way do you want to die? Because if you're going to die, a slow death, then so be it. But for me, I want to take my chances being aggressive. I want to take my chances trying to put pressure on Tom Brady, on any quarterback. My cornerbacks, I know that Nelson and Slay want to play more aggressive. They are man corners, but we're playing cover 2, cover 4, halves coverage, quarters coverage. Those coverages are ineffective against a quarterback like Tom Brady and any quarterback that's been around long enough, to understand how you beat those coverages. What is the remedy? Only God knows, because I don't see, this coaching staff saying or intimating to us as fans that, hey, we need to make some changes. So when that's your position, 9 times out of 10, what it looks like, hey, our scheme works. What we're calling works. It's the players that aren't executed, and sometimes that is the case. But as I look at this vanilla defense, same defense that we saw in the preseason, that supposedly we're waiting, we got all this great stuff that we're going to throw at teams, in the regular season. This looks like that same vanilla defense. It looks like that same vanilla offense that we saw in preseason with no change. And they are not set up to succeed. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be a long season for the Philadelphia Eagles, and a lot of debate about whether Nick Siriani is the guy, whether Jalen Hurts can be the guy, and whether Jonathan Gannon is way, way over his head. Well, I'm going to wrap my dialogue there. I went on longer than I thought I'd go on, 24 minutes, but seems that my guest is preoccupied. So I'm going to have my producer just jump over, and we're going to turn this thing into a Talk to Him Tuesday. I'm sure you guys got plenty of questions, plenty of things you want to talk about, plenty of things you want to get off your chest. Let's do it right here. Talk to Him Tuesday. All right. Cedric says, with a new cornerback, can we run dime defense? And listen, that's a great question, because I don't know whether Jonathan Gannon's comment, 2 weeks ago was one of, hey, we don't have enough guys to run dime. That's certainly not, what he intimated when he said it. He said, hey, we're not a dime team. We're 4 down and 2 linebackers. Does that open up the possibility? I would hope so, because there are situations in the game where you need to go dime. When it's 3rd down and long, you need to be in dime. Okay. You don't need to have two linebackers on the field in dime situations, trying to figure out and trying to run and trying to match up, with these inside wide receivers and these tight ends. It makes no sense. So at the end of the day, we'll see. The question is, can we run dime? Absolutely. I think we have enough guys right now that we can run dime. Question is whether Jonathan Gannon, will make the adjustment and add, a dime defense, to their sub package. Okay. Manny wants to know, could this be Howie Roseman's doing with Siriani play calling? Something just doesn't look right or feel right with what's going on. And there's no way Siriani can be this incompetent with play calling. And listen, I intimated this weeks ago. Who knows? Nobody knows for certain. We do know that Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman wants a high-powered offense, an offense that's pass-centric. This could be, could have been the straw that broke the camel's back with one Doug Peterson. Like I've said before, I don't feel like Doug Peterson was fired. Jeffrey Lurie came out and basically said, hey, Doug Peterson doesn't deserve to be fired. Well, if he didn't deserve to be fired, why would you fire him? I believe that Doug Peterson got tired of the meddling. He got tired of this same thing, this question that you just asked me, is this their doing? Because Nick Sirianni is smart enough to look at his offense and see that it's ineffective, that some changes need to be made. And if he called plays in Indianapolis last year, Indianapolis's offense is much, much more complex than what we're seeing in this offense. Okay. If that's the case, then maybe he is being told what to run and how to run it and where to run it and to throw it, I should say, but at the end of the day, it's going to cost him his job, and he better get to a point where he asks himself the question, hey, do I want to run what I want to run? It's my offense, or am I going to do what they want me to do and risk being fired anyway? All right. Mike says, will any other veterans be traded in your opinion? The trade deadline is coming up. I believe it's a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. I think if the Eagles drop this game and fall to basically 2-5, I think you'd have to ask that question. I mean, how much more of the salary cap can we clear? We're not getting a lot out of Fletcher Cox. I think he's got maybe a year and a half, 2 more years left on his deal. They converted some of his salary to signing bonus to clear some cap space earlier. The problem is, who do you have? Are you trading Fletcher for another defensive tackle? Are you okay with the guys that you have on the roster to let one of your preeminent players walk away and be traded in this situation? Do you get to a place as far as this season is concerned where you basically ask yourself, or you say to yourself, I should say, hey, this season's washed, this season lost. Let's start looking towards 2022. Let's start looking towards the offseason. It's early in the year. It's kind of foolish to even be having those conversations. But if you don't see any light at the end of the tunnel, at some point, you have to begin to start asking yourself the question, what are we doing? What do we need to do? And what is next year going to look like? And you might as well start planning for that if that's where you are. Put the young guys out there, let the young guys play as much as they can, get as much experience as they can throughout this year that will have been deemed a loss if that's what, that's where you're coming from, and pretty much go from there. But I don't know. It's a great question. Michael wants to know how the rookie defensive tackle's doing. Well, you haven't heard much from Milton Williams whatsoever. Hassan Ridgeway, you heard a little bit about him, throughout the preseason. Seems like the only guy I should say that's making any kind of noise is Javon Hargrave. And he was a bit solid the other night. They got some pressures on Tom. They moved him off his spot a few times. But you didn't see the dominance out of Javon Hargrave or Fletcher Cox that you saw, the previous week. So it'll be interesting. Like I said, if you decide to move Fletcher, and I know there's some conversation out there that has transpired and taken place, if you decide to move on from him and make that trade, what does that look like from a depth perspective? And who now becomes a starter, and what does that look like? Does the third round pick in Milton Williams means that, hey, it's Milton time? I don't know. I've seen him play a lot of 5 technique in their 30 front. I've yet to see him, that much at all in a 2 technique or a 3 technique. Maybe the thought is that he can't play that position. I don't know. I'm not certain, what the issues are, and what we're really talking about as far as, some of these young guys are concerned. I'm not at practice. I'm not seeing how he's progressing. I'm not seeing, how hard he's working and what it really looks like. I can't tell you why a guy like Milton Williams that you picked in the 3rd round that you was extremely excited about, doesn't get a lot of snaps throughout the game, especially as much as teams have been able to throw the ball on us. You would think, okay, let's put him in the game, see what he can do, from a pass rush perspective. That's yet to be seen. I haven't seen or heard much at all from these young defensive tackles that we have on the roster that are backing up Javon Hargrave and one Fletcher Cox. All right. Romy wants to know, would you trade for Miles Jack? In a heartbeat, are you kidding me? Listen, that kid can flat out play. I can remember when he came out of college, he was a 4'4", 40 guy, just all over the field. Anything that we can get at linebacker right now is an upgrade. Brian Westbrook had a fantastic breakdown on his Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook page of a play where, Alex Smith, they were in 30 front, he had a nose guard on the center, and they ran the ball to his right, and there was a massive hole for Alex to run through. And, being the crafty back that Leonard Fournette is, he did a little pit-a-pat, and that stopped Alex's feet. And, Alex didn't run through. He was in on the tackle, but Fournette gained 6 yards. Where if Alex would have just shot his gun and shot the gap, he could have made a tackle in the backfield, for, a 1 yard gain, maybe a yard gain at most. But for some reason or another, when I look at our linebackers, they're not trusting their eyes. Anytime that you see a linebacker see a play that's wide open and he's hesitant to shoot his gun and go and make the play, 9 times out of 10, that tells me that he's not believing what he's seeing, okay? Because when you believe what you see, you just, you take it right now. You shoot the gap right now. There is no hesitation, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Any kind of hesitation from linebackers or safeties, that means that they're in trouble, okay? Because now you're a step behind. Now you allow the blocking scheme to actually get you, or you allow the running back to, to advance 2 or 3 more yards than he should have, because of your hesitation. So a lot of times it's just the eyes. What do you see? Do you believe your eyes? Are you believing what you see? Are you believing, that what you studied throughout the week is really what's transpiring in front of your eyes? And are you courageous enough? Do you have enough confidence to go ahead and do what you've trained your body to do? When I watch Alex Singleton, I don't see that. I don't see it as far as blocking schemes are concerned. I don't see it, in his tackling. Yeah, he's making a lot of tackles. He's making a lot of tackles downfield. He's making a lot of tackles at 5, 6, 7 yards down the field. And we can talk about the statistics. And the thing that I told this guy today, we're accepting the mediocrity of players today based upon statistics. Oh, he's 3rd in the NFL in tackles, so that means he must be playing one hell of a game. No. Go and watch the game, and you'll see he's making a lot of tackles because that's what he's supposed to do as a linebacker, especially an off-the-ball backer. But then you turn around and you realize that Tampa Bay rushed for 102 yards, 5.5 yards a carry, and you want to talk to me about how many tackles he had? Talk to me when he's got 10 tackles and they've only rushed for 75 yards and 3.5 yards a carry. Now we're talking about some production. All right. Anthony wants to know my thoughts on Davion Taylor so far. Listen, he's just green. The kid is green. I mean, he was green when they drafted him. I mean, if you go back and you understand the history, growing up as a kid, he couldn't play football, at the youth level because of his faith beliefs. And in college, he was a heck of a player. Looked more like a safety to me in some of the film that I watched than an actual linebacker. But he played linebacker, and he was all over the field, great speed from sideline to sideline, a sure tackler. But the problem is he's learning a new system. He's trying to learn how to play, the NFL game. It's a big difference playing college football, especially as a defensive player, and playing professional football. The game is so much faster. There's so much more technicality and so many more logistics that go into it, and the way that teams, scheme how they block you. It takes time for you to see those things. And the more you see those things, then the more they're seared into your mind, so that now you can react. He's in a position now where you can see he's thinking. When he trusts his eyes and he knows what he knows, he goes 100 miles an hour, and he makes some decent plays. The problem is, he's still in that phase of his career where he's looking, and you can see the wheels turning as he's trying to decipher what's going on. And while he's standing there trying to figure it out, the offense is advancing. So does he have the potential? Absolutely. Absolutely. Based upon everything else that we've seen, Alex Singleton, Harris, those guys just quite simply have not got it done. TJ Edwards is a tackling machine, but I don't see the foot speed and the athleticism necessary to be a starter in this new age football of basically 4-2 fronts. Those two guys in the middle have got to be players. They got to be able to run. They got to be able to tackle. They got to be able to blitz. They got to be able to cover. Okay. And when you look at these linebackers, they all specialize in one area or the other, and they lack majorly in the other areas. So the Eagles need linebacker help. I mean, that's just not, new to anyone who's watched the game and really understand how the game works. Okay. Philly Talk Podcast wants to know, looking at the offense, there are multiple things that need work. However, what's the biggest one in your eyes? Listen, it's hard. It's hard on Nick Siriani as a play caller when 4/5 of your offensive linemen are backups. It's hard on your young quarterback when you're being asked to throw the ball, 3/4 of the time. Those are just difficult asks, for both the play caller and the quarterback. But I think, when you talk about offensive linemen, the one thing that they all grew up doing is they all grew up run blocking. Even if you draft a guy that's deficient in pass blocking, or he's a project in pass blocking, if they played football for an extended period of time, the one thing they know how to do is fire off and hit somebody in the mouth. They know how to double team. They know how to climb up to the second level. So the one thing that they can do to remedy some of this, okay, is to get in a conventional set, 12 personnel, one back, two tight ends, okay? I'd like to see some 20 personnel. I'd like to see both Gainwell and Miles Sanders on the field at the same time, okay? Because now you can get extremely creative with that. You can motion Miles out of the field and run the ball, to Kenneth Gainwell. You can motion Kenneth Gainwell out and go play action pass and take advantage of having Kenneth Gainwell, into the route. There's a lot of things that you can do. You can even go 13 personnel and make the decision that, hey, you know what? We're just going to line up and, call a trap play, call an OT one way or the other, stretch play to the strong side with the wide receiver with his split cut down, and give Miles Sanders the opportunity to stretch it, and then look and find, a crease or a gap somewhere. We don't have any of that. In my opinion, those types of offensive plays will create the opportunity for Jalen Hurts to be more effective, and the offense, for that matter, to be more effective. Linemen want to beat people up. That's what they do. Offensive linemen want to beat people up. But when you're throwing the ball at the clip that we're throwing it at, you put them in a passive stance all the time. They're pass blocking all the time. The quarterback is going to get pressure. The quarterback is going to get sacked. Our quarterback is going to run as long as they keep throwing the ball and putting it in the air as much as they've been putting it in the air. That's just a fact. There is no getting around that. It's just a fact. That's what it's going to be. So until they make the decision to shift their mindset and realize that, you got two able running backs that you're not utilizing, that you're not finding creative ways to get the ball to, they're going to continue to struggle, and there's just no ifs, ands about it, no two ways about it. It is what it is. It just is what it is. Well, so Swiss wants to know, what positions would you address in this year's first round? Man, we're only 6 weeks into the season. You want to talk about the draft? I think the main position that you have to address, because I know they're not going to address the linebacker spot. The safety spot will probably be reserved, for if it's a real top-notch guy, he may be that third pick of the 3 first rounders that we have. We definitely need help there. We need a playmaker, a game changer at the safety position. But you have to look at the injuries over the last 3 years of the offensive line. You got to think about, how many more injuries, can you deal with Brandon Brooks and the implications of, how much money you're paying him and what that means to the salary cap. You've got to begin to think about how many more years, how much gas does Lane Johnson have left in the tank? And, the latest issues, that he's dealing with. The other thing is, Jason Kelce. I mean, he's got to be asking himself, what the hell did I come back for another year for this? So, I mean, you've got to, consider, all of those things and ask yourself, if you're going to be a successful football team, then you better secure the trenches on both sides of the ball. If you decide to move on from Fletcher Cox after this year, then you got to think about, do we spend one of those first rounders on, the future 10-year defensive tackle if he's out there? All of those things are, questions that are going to be facing the Eagles when they roll into this next offseason and they begin to talk about the draft. Zach, can you throw that last question on Lane Johnson back up there? Okay, Michael wants to know, do you think Lane Johnson will make an impact in the next game? Hey, listen, anytime you have that guy on the field, it's been proven statistically. You can go back and look over the last 5, 6, 7 years. Anytime that you have Lane Johnson on the field, you're a better offense for it. I don't know what the issues are, anxiety, depression, mental health. Listen, they're real. You have to ask yourself the question, even though he's back and he's going to be back on the field Sunday, is his head going to be, where the Philadelphia Eagles need it to be? Nobody knows that, and because we don't know that, we don't know what he's going to mean to this football team. I just know that when he's on the field, this offense is much better. And then you can take Jordan Mailata and put him back over on the other side where he belongs, and get Andre Dillard back off the field. At least, you'll have, 3/5 of your offensive line back and healthy and ready to battle. Okay. Yeah, my producer's searching for a good question here, I see. Here we go. Laquan Weston says, what do you look for in the draft in a cornerback or linebacker? What do you look for in a corner? Well, you're looking for a guy, in my opinion, that's a 4-3-4-4 guy. I think that's the prerequisite to play the cornerback position in today's game. I think you look for a guy who has great skills, not just ball skills, but skills. Um, I'm just perplexed when I watch professional football now at the amount of cornerbacks that when they feel like they're in a position where they're beat, they run through the wide receiver. They won't even look back for the ball. The preeminent thing to do is that if you're beat, you want to fight to get back in position. Now, once you get in position, you position yourself the proper way. You got to look back and find the ball. But cornerbacks today don't do that, and they're very far and few in between that are coached at the collegiate level to play that way. That's why the DPI is such a big deal, because quarterbacks now are just throwing the ball up, throw it a little short, let the DB run into the wide receiver, and let's pick up the yardage that way. What I look for at linebacker, obviously, these kids now to play linebacker, you have to be able to run. When I look at the Devin Whites and the Devin Bushes of the world, these linebackers, they're sub 4-5 guys. They understand blocking schemes. They get to the point of attack with an attitude, whether they're taking on a lineman or whether they're taking on, a fullback or whether they're going to make the tackle. I'm looking for aggressiveness. I'm looking for smarts, okay, that when you drop into coverage, you're not just dropping to a landmark and focusing your eyes only on the quarterback. You got to realize these quarterbacks are masterful at manipulating defenses with their eyes, okay? But you got to be able to see the quarterback and see the routes that are forming around you and understand route combinations and route concepts and understand that if you get one guy going, there's another guy coming back. If you get a guy leaving or you get two guys crossing, there's somebody coming behind you, not the chase and zone. And then lastly, your ability, to not only cover backside of the backfield and tight ends if so called to do so, but your ability to rush, to get pressure on the quarterback, whether you got to beat an offensive lineman or you're in, man situation. See, I was always coached, if you don't want to cover that back out of the backfield, just step up in the line, like you're going to blitz him. 9 times out of 10, he's yours in blitz pickup, especially if the mic is away from you, which 9 times out of 10 it is. You always hear the quarterback say, Mike Wright 80, 59 or whatever. So if 59 is over here and you're 54 and the back's on your side, step up in that B gap, step up in that C gap, make that back think that, hey, I'm coming. Okay, now you force him to stay in. If he releases hot, now you're in a situation where you can attack him from the inside out, and now you're not sitting back on your heels, giving him a two-way go, standing at 4, 5, or 6 yards, down the field. Those guys come out, they're so crafty. They're going to set you up. They're going to hit the angle right underneath. They're going to stab you inside and go out. And some of these offensive coordinators are crafty enough to make it seem like they're going to give you something underneath, and they'll run a seam on you. So these are all qualities, that I'm looking for in a linebacker. And if he doesn't possess them, does he possess the skill set that if I'm the linebacker coach, that I can develop him, that I can develop those skills? If he wants to be great, then he'll go to work. If he wants to be great, then he'll listen, he'll take to the coaching, okay? If he wants to be great, then he's going to do the little things over the first 2 or 3 years of his career to be great. If not, then he's just going to be an average player that doesn't progress, that no one will ever know about until we talk about, how ineffective he is at certain things that are required to play the linebacker position. Okay. D. Hurley, do you think we made a mistake by not keeping Malcolm Jenkins? Listen, I said that, back when they let Malcolm go. Malcolm is still playing good ball. I don't know how many years it's been, but you had the leadership, you had, the productivity was slipping just a little bit, but the leadership on the field, the communication, a lot of what I see now and a lot of what the Eagles have lost is that, when Malcolm left, the importance of communication went out the door with him. You know, Rodney tries to do it, but you can just tell that's not, his MO. He's going to line up and play. But Malcolm was the glue that held it all together from the standpoint of, communicating. I mean, somebody's got to talk. Guys are shifting. Guys are going in motion. Defenses are changing. Responsibilities are changing. You got to have that guy on the field that says, check, check, check. This is what we're going to. And then you turn and you talk to your young corner, or you talk to your cornerback and tell him, okay, lock him up over there. Or, you got the outside, I got the inside. Defensive football is really about communication. I need to know where you are and what your responsibility is, okay? If I'm playing linebacker and I drop into a zone, I know that if I'm a hash player or a hook player, that I've got a guy in the flat. So when I come up to make a tackle, I'm never going to try to tackle that guy's outside shoulder. Why? Because I got two things to my advantage on the outside. I've got a flat player who's going to attack him from the outside shoulder, and I got the sideline. So my aiming point is the inside leg, the inside shoulder of that guy that catches the ball on the outside of me. Okay, these are just coaching things that need to be taught to players. But when you have veteran players that understand how important those small things are to the success of a defense, that makes defenses that much more successful. And when you let Malcolm Jenkins walk away, that went away with him. And this defense, even under Schwartz last year, and even much more so this year, has struggled ever since because these guys don't talk. They don't talk. You see a guy. So you saw a tight end catch a ball for a touchdown last week. Kerrigan didn't know what he was doing. Then you see the same thing happen the week before. Okay, 5-man front in the red zone, down by the goal line. Okay, the Carolina Panthers drew it up. They had a 3-way bunch play where they motioned the wide receiver in. The back was offset. You had one guy went out, one guy went in, and one guy hooked up in the middle. They messed it up because they didn't talk about it. Okay. Then you turn around this week and they drag a tight end from way on the other side, and Kerrigan doesn't get enough depth. And the quarterback throws the ball over his head for another touchdown. Okay. So now tell me, if you're a defensive back and you know that guy, that defensive end who's out of his element, who doesn't drop all the time, who's purely, for the most part, 90% of the time a pass rush, if you know you have him involved in the coverage, why aren't you having that conversation with him? Why aren't you talking about it? Okay? Get your depth. Look for something crossing. I'll give you a heads up, when I see something crossing. That kind of conversation and that kind of communication during the game is paramount to defensive success. And I don't see it. I don't see this defense talking. Guys running scot-free. They're standing around looking at each other, pointing, oh, I thought you was there. Oh, I thought you were there. How about having a conversation about it before the damn ball is snapped so that everybody's on the same page and you know what you're doing? It's no different than, okay, they motion a guy across the formation. The defense checked from one thing to another. The safety made the check, or the middle linebacker made the check, and half the team heard it and half the team didn't. It's a recipe for disaster, okay? And that's one of the things that this defensive coaching staff has most certainly got to correct. They've got to be more aggressive, but you got to talk about communication on the field. Talk about what's going on. Hey, if I'm dropping with another linebacker, when me and Byron would drop and a guy would cross my face, or I feel a guy crossing behind me, I'd be like, B, crossing. That lets him know what's coming. So now he's thinking about the play in a different light, all right? That's what they lose in leadership in a guy like Malcolm Jenkins. Christopher wants to know, is Rager a bust as it seemed? He gets man coverage a lot, but little production. This is my personal opinion on Jalen Rager. You guys already know, I thought that him at 21 was a massive mistake last year. When you could have had Justin Jefferson, you should have took Justin Jefferson. Does he have some skills? Yes. My problem with Jalen Reagor, and when you draft him at 21, is that, he runs a 4.4 40 or he's, 4.3 40. Well, I don't see the suddenness in what he does right now. I don't see the urgency in how he plays. I think that Quez Watkins, in my opinion, is the second best wide receiver on this football team. I think Quez is being held back because when you draft a guy 21 overall and then you come back and you take a guy in the first round, the top 10 the next year, okay, first of all, that tells me you have some reservations about the guy that you drafted at 21. That's the first thing. The second thing is when the 5th or 6th round pick is outplaying the 21st overall pick, that's egg on the face of the organization. If all of a sudden Quez Watkins now becomes the 2 and Jalen Reagor is the guy that's relegated to less playing time. So the politics of football, in my opinion, are what's at work here. And that part of the game I don't like, because coaches always talk about, the meritocracy of the game and, the best players and, they're the players, the guys that win the position. You can't tell me that Quez Watkins is not a much more dynamic wide receiver than Jalen Reagor. Yet every single game we see Jalen Reagor, not being able to make plays in one-on-one situations, not catching balls that a number one guy really needs to be catching. I don't know. This team has consistently made mistakes at the wide receiver position. I do not believe that Devontae Smith is a mistake. I think in time he will get better. I think he's still trying to get his feet wet. He's trying to understand and learn the pro game. But Jalen Reagor in his second year, he should be heads and shoulders above where he is. And you got a motivated guy like Quez Watkins that can stretch the field, according to people that I've talked to, can run every route on the route tree. Why isn't he getting more looks than an unproductive Jalen Reagor at this time? I don't know. I don't have any answer for you. Okay. As we wind the show down, let's talk about, some predictions. You guys can, throw some predictions out there for the upcoming game. The Eagles got the Oakland Raiders and they've got the Las Vegas Raiders this week. And after everything that went on with John Gruden, they came out last week and just, didn't miss a beat. Defensively, they played well. Offensively, Derek Carr had a big game. And it looks to me like it may be a godsend that John Gruden is no longer the head coach. The Eagles are going to have another tough one because this is a good football team. They've got a tight end that probably, could be considered as one of the best tight ends in the game. Derek Carr's playing at a high level. Josh Jacobs, had a great week last week. He seems to be healing up. The Eagles defense is going to have a massive challenge from a defensive perspective. And then offensively, if they continue to play the way that they've been playing, I find it hard to believe that this Raiders defense, looking at a situation where they've, got an easy win, is not going to come out and do what it is that they need to do to win this game. Again, my predictions, you guys are going to have to watch NBC Sports Philly pregame show to get my prediction. I want to remind you guys, please, follow us on Facebook, head over to YouTube and subscribe. We'll be right back here next week. I don't know what happened to my man, Warren Sapp. I will chat with him and try to see if I can't get him rescheduled for next week. Hopefully everything was good. As always, thanks to my producer, Zach James. As always, you guys be good to each other, take care of each other, but most importantly, make sure you love each other. That's our show for today. I'll see you here next week. Fly, Eagles, fly.